what stands out with you as kind of some of the big stories? Obviously COVID, but maybe more precisely, how did the county and the city handle all the issues related to COVID, the economic situation, et cetera?
If you had to pick a word, I'd pick the overused word resilience, because that seemed to be really true here in both the response to COVID and, in that instance, the health department, Roger Harrell, Dr. Casey Scott, Angela Grove, that triumvirate, that really is typically hidden away from view from most of the community, came to the fore. And wow, what a solid team of professionals that were right on it and did a terrific job keeping the community informed and having really amazingly complete and articulate answers to whatever the question was today, even when it was hedged with the customary, we're learning so much, but here's what we know so far. It really, I think, gave the community a sense of confidence that the right people are working on this for us. And then they, in conjunction with the Dorchester Chamber of Commerce, since this quickly became a controversial issue in terms of just shut it all down. The governor's stay-at-home order that was supposed to last for 14 days and wound up lasting for 45 days. So that dynamic, on the one hand, perfectly understandable, protect public health and safety has got to be the government's job first and foremost. But then the economic engine that drives everything, was at risk with everything shut down. So they worked on this interesting balance between, and had as an ally, Bill Christopher at the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the state's attorney, Bill Jones. So those three entities, I'd say more than anything else, were in constant conversation and navigating. I'm sure there was some dicey behind the scenes conversations going on with various businesses about, hey, we got reports, not all your people are wearing masks, not all your people are enforcing people wearing masks. What about your hours? What about compliance? And, to their credit, nothing untoward really erupted from that very volatile, potentially inflammatory situation. So that was certainly number one on the hit parade. If you can, put COVID at the top of the hit parade, which I guess is what we have to do in 2020. I guess also reflecting back on it, and I saw this here at the radio station at Cambridge Community Radio, I happened to do a little reprise of the most popular stories that we ran. So all the big stories that we run on Midshore Midday, we make it a point to put them into SoundCloud, and then we get some very nice analytics. And so the most popular story of all of them was not COVID. That was actually number two with Dr. Casey Scott, but the number one was Cesar Gonzalez and the report that he did about the repainting of the Black Lives Matter mural downtown on Race Street. So it was not just that, but after it had been damaged, then the community had a get together that reflected on the fate of this young man who had caused the vandalism. And boy, the way that it was handled and articulated, and hats off to State's Attorney Bill Jones for, being in the heat of the moment, under fire, and coming up with the answer on, of course, we want to give all youth the opportunity for an alternative to, some more serious sanctions when they're doing something that, most of us did something in our youth that we look back on and say, oh, why did I do that? Well, because I was a young person, and sometimes we fall in with the bad crowd today and we do some things that, we might not be doing with our own good instincts. The second day of resilience, it was called, at the courthouse in September, where we had that remarkable Harriet Tubman Take My Hand statue of the young girl that followed on the heels of the Take My Hand mural that Mike Rosato had unveiled the year before. But that statue on the courthouse grounds in particular here in Dorchester I think gave us a positive feeling about where our community is at now versus where it has been at in its past. And so, all in all, I think Dorchester gets amazingly good high marks for how it handled a very tough, difficult year. And isn't it ironic that in adversity is maybe when you find out the most important things about how individuals and communities, will really respond, what's in their heart and their character.
When you look at 2021, do you see this being carried over?
I think that we'll see it. The new leadership of the city council, which is an all-new city council. So Dorchester, Cambridge voted for change. I think you have to say is accurate. Not that the past city council had done anything wrong or had anything to apologize for. They did a remarkably good job through some very trying times. Mayor Stanley there, first thing that happened to her when she was inaugurated in the office was the 2008 catastrophe and had to lay off a bunch of employees. And, they handled that as best anyone could. But these days, the new city council is decidedly looking forward. That picture of incoming Mayor Andrew Bradshaw with the full assembly behind him of the newly elected commissioners in front of the classic crab basket tree in the heart of downtown, I think speaks volumes for a community that is united and is looking forward positively and probably progressively at doing some things that will make a meaningful difference that people will be able to see in the activities around the community. I think the first thing they did right after the new year was have a cleanup day. Let's get out and clean up and improve our community. So, actions speak louder than words, and they're getting right to it in the right way. So I think they will guide a very interesting effort. The Waterfront initiative in particular is going to be something transformational, very much like the Hyatt was. And when you talk to former Mayor Dave Wooten and ask him what was the most significant activity that took place on his watch, he says, definitely getting the Hyatt here. So my suspicion is, and I told this to Mayor Bradshaw, is that whatever happens at that waterfront is pretty much going to define, I think, a high point of his legacy. And I see the community increasing its interest and focus on that. Sandra Tripp Jones is leading the waterfront development group that is trying to marshal together the right developers to come into town. And they've got that big survey out now that by the middle of January should be released. And we'll probably have some very interesting input from the citizens and the community about what really belongs there. Yeah. The delicate balance between making something awesome, which we would all want something awesome in theory, but without destroying the very fragile downtown, the historic downtown that, thanks to COVID is on shaky legs. I think is going to be very interesting to see, but I get a very strong sense that everybody is committed in their hearts to taking the very best overall idea and working towards it without any preset notions of what it must be, has to be, or absolutely cannot be. I think we'll get a very good hearing on the possibilities and hopefully pick the right ones with the right developers moving forward.
How is it looking economically? As you were saying, these towns really did take a hit as a result of COVID.
I think all in all, not too shabby. I think everything is under stress and is somewhat precarious, but hopefully we've weathered the worst of it, and hopefully there'll be this slow, gradual uptake in activity as the vaccines are rolling out, and that will stay on a generally positive upward slope. But there's a lot of businesses, I think, that may be more precarious than we know behind the scenes and that have been hanging on an awful long time. And the question is, can they hang on for a few more months? Will there be the needed relief from federal support and state support to get them over the hump. I know that, the restaurants in particular, I mean, with the upsurge that's going on right now and the contagiousness of the disease and new strains that are more contagious coming out, it's pretty volatile and could take a bad turn. But at this moment, I think all in all, Dorchester's not in the worst shape of all the counties out there. And all in all, we see signs of some, pretty healthy economic activity in certain sectors, restaurants, and hospitality industry being the exception that are, truly been hammered and I think are just struggling to keep it going. And we're working with them and praying for them every day.
And the other side of the coin is interesting too, because you have this boom in real estate.
Yeah, there's definitely been an influx of folks from Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Washington into Dorchester this year. There's been instance after instance of homes going above the highest asking price that they'd ever put on the market. So it's definitely seen as an area to be, whether it's a drive from safety or to safety from places that might have the appearance of not being as safe, or if it's simply the timing is right for a whole generation of people to be retiring and they're looking around for what's the more rural area that might be affordable, that's got, marvelous water all throughout it, that, water's restorative. So to get to look at it is a luxury. And you can feel, pretty wealthy if you've got a nice waterfront nearby to enjoy. And here in Cambridge, we've got so much history in the architecture that you just don't find everywhere. So I think that's been a nice little confluence and is yielded this nice bump up in real estate. But that's slowed down here recently. It was certainly very hot, I think, this summer and fall.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Always good to talk to you, Dave.